Welcome to Happy Talks with Dr. Alice and Donovan. Dr. Alice Fong is a holistic naturopathic doctor and founder of Amor de Soi Wellness, and Donovan Jensen is a software engineer and founder of HowToHappy.com. Together, they're out to cause more happiness in the world.
Hey everyone, welcome to Happy Talks. My name is Dr. Alice and I have my amazing co-host Donovan here. And today I have a very special guest, Wendy Bjork, who has been dealing with multiple sclerosis since her teen years and has been dubbed the MS Warrior Queen. Please welcome Wendy. Thanks for joining us here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Great. So you've been dealing with multiple sclerosis since you were a teenager. Do you want to tell us a little about your story and maybe explain to our viewers what multiple sclerosis is?
Sure. And I guess a basic overview of MS or multiple sclerosis is it's when your myelin, which covers your nerve endings, is damaged or missing. So that what happens is then when your brain's trying to communicate with your extremities, for example, the communication signals are missed. Mm-hmm. So then it inhibits your walking or your movement, or, a million different things can be possible. Plus it can affect your cognition, your brain fog. There's a lot of, symptoms that pop up like that. Plus there's fatigue related MS, symptoms that way. I mean, there's just so many different things that can be attributed from it. And I guess my initial symptoms were just triggered from a hot bath. I think I was 16, 17, and just felt like my legs were spaghetti noodles when I got out of it. So this went on, for 5 years, just not knowing what was going on. And the doctor, the general practitioner didn't know, and I didn't go see a neurologist for quite a while after that. So it was just kind of like a waiting game. And I think that's pretty common with a lot of people. Just noticing in different groups I'm in, it's just such a wide range of symptoms, it's hard to label it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a couple questions just to dig in a little bit more and maybe expand on some of those pieces. And you can correct me where I'm wrong, because this is your area of expertise, not mine. But it sounds like, there's kind of the myelin sheaths is what helps keep the electrical signals that go from the brain out to other places in check or working properly. You mentioned that MS has some sort of damage to those. Does that mean that it typically stays kind of like localized? Do people tend to get the same pattern of symptoms? Does it really depend? I guess I'm trying to understand a little bit more about how anyone might see that kind of play out.
And I think it's different for everybody, which area of the body is affected the most. And it seems like maybe a snowball effect, once you have one area, if it's your left side affected, it's like it could be from your shoulder down to your ankles that's affected, or anywhere in between. And I think just, things that trigger it, and then that depends on the severity of it. But yes, when the myelin sheath is damaged, that's what's causing all these miscommunications, and the myelin doesn't heal. That's the bad part. So once it's damaged, there's no rewinding, and fixing it.
I'm curious, what have been some of the strategies you've utilized to be able to cope with such a challenging medical condition?
I think what's helped the most is, besides my strong faith, just believing in healing. And my first boss, when I was done with college at my first job, and this is the early 90s, he was into personal development. That's way before it was cool. And I think that really gave me the tools to go forward and just be able to deal with it, even on the really hard days where you just don't feel like getting out of bed or leaving the house.
So if we could go back to maybe a little bit more of your journey, I'd be curious, you said you kind of had some of these symptoms, they were showing up. It took a while to get diagnosed. Could you fill in some more of the gaps from, you got this diagnosis to where you are now? And it sounds like you probably have some better tools. You probably have some things to share with people. If we could fill in a couple of those steps, that'd be awesome.
So when I was first diagnosed, I was 22. So it took 5 years of all these weird things happening. And then finally I had a bad relapse or attack. It was actually when I was at work, it was like someone had their hand over my mouth, and I didn't know if I was having a stroke or what was happening. But that's what sent me to a neurologist. And I saw like 4 or 5 more before they pinpointed it. And, that included an MRI, which was pretty new technology for diagnosing it. And I think just maybe my stance initially was just kind of ignore it and hope it goes away, which that didn't work, obviously. But, I was in a spot where, all my friends are going out and having fun, and I didn't want to be, held back or sit at home because of this thing that I have now. And the other thing was, just growing up, my grandma had horrible rheumatoid arthritis. So all I can remember was her being confined to a chair and just, sitting there looking out the window all day long. And that was my other motivator, was I don't want to end up like that. I want to live. I want to have a life. And I just, always pushed myself, which may or may not be the best thing to do or best advice. But I think I've learned you just have to listen to your body and know when to take a break. Know when it's time to just take a chair if you have to. And just so many different variables, are involved in healing, I think. And just having the positive mindset and knowing that you need to love yourself and keep giving yourself grace, because you can't change it. It's there, it's going to be with you for your whole life, and it's just something you need to deal with on a daily basis. It's kind of like having another part-time job.
Yeah. Kind of like what I'm hearing in all of that you're saying is that, coming to terms and accepting this illness that sounds devastating and debilitating, and I would imagine, I obviously couldn't really fully understand it, but I could imagine that it could pay a really challenging, difficult toll on you emotionally. So how did you cope with those, especially as a young, teen to early 20s, and kind of being confused with all of that? Was there a mentor that you worked with? How did you kind of cope with those difficult emotions?
I guess I just kept ramming through life. And if I could go back and talk to myself at that age, I would just say, like I said, give yourself grace and just know that it'll be okay. You have this for life, but it doesn't need to have you. While you're able to walk good, travel, do these things that seem like, you would wait your lifetime to do, and then do it. Don't wait for anything, just do it.
Totally. Actually, that reminds me of something that it wasn't directly to me, but it was in an audience of like a leader coach person, and who had Parkinson's disease, and he was trembling like nonstop. He had no control over that. And he said something really profoundly impactful that it just still sticks with me today of, my body has Parkinson's. I don't have Parkinson's. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just like, yeah. So it's just kind of coming to terms with it is that, yeah, it's a difficult diagnosis. It's a challenging life, but knowing that doesn't have to define who you are, I think can be helpful. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I think, I've been down the, rough road. There was times after I had my second baby, I could barely walk, and people look at me and ask if I had a broken back. It's like, no, I have MS. And that was my other thing, is I just always pretended I was fine, because it's so hard for people to ask for help, myself included. And, just wearing this mask of, I'm okay, I don't need help, but you're just dragging yourself around. And that was another thing I learned, is just, you can't just keep pretending you're fine.
Yeah, that's obviously the circumstances are a little different. But one of the things that I've had to learn is in asking for help in other realms is there are a lot of situations where, because I used to not want to do it because I felt like I'd be a burden on people, or that they wouldn't understand, or something, right? There was some number of things that would prevent me from asking for help when I genuinely needed it. And it finally started to shift a little bit for me when I realized in some circumstances, there's not anything the other person would rather do than help. So probably the clearest example is like, loved ones, right? There were times where I had problems with depression. Again, I know it's a very super different thing, but I didn't want to ask for help because I didn't want to add a burden onto them, right? And trouble them with this extra thing I was dealing with. And that's the piece that finally clicked for me, is that for, certain people in my family or certain relationships that I had, there's nothing that would have made them happier than to actually be able to help in those instances. On that note, I would be kind of curious if there was some sort of inflection point, or what it was for you that allowed you to, shift more into being able to ask for help, because it sounds like maybe that wasn't always the case.
No, and it's, maybe even up till like 3-4 years ago, that was the case. And I think my shift was, I was recommended a book called Unstoppable Influence by Natasha Hazlett. And then she has this group that I joined where she just really helps you peel back all these layers of why, you, for example, don't want to ask for help, and all the things that block you from doing these things. So being a part of that group, helped me so much. And I just met so many other cool people in there. My friend Rachel, she's now channeling, and that just helped me open up and get rid of this mask, so that I can go forward and help other people deal with this illness and be the person that I would have loved to have had when I was, stumbling along.
So on that note, maybe we can open up that conversation a little bit more. Let's say, and maybe you can help me fill out this hypothetical person, but let's say someone comes to you and they're just at the start of their journey. What are some of the pieces of advice or exercises, or I have no idea what, because I don't have any expertise, but what are some of the things that you would maybe say to someone?
Well, it starts with teaching them how to just be able to look in the mirror and love themselves, because we are not, I think, as a society, encouraged to do that. People think it's, you're self-centered, or it's woo-woo, but it's really important in conquering anything, I think, is just to be able to give yourself that space and grace of, like we said earlier, this is happening and I just need to ride this wave because it's my life now. So I think that's the first step. And because everybody starts at a different point, whether they're upset or angry or frustrated or depressed, or, I just meet them where they're at, and that's where we start from.
Mm-hmm. Got it. I'd be curious in, for someone who has MS, like, what would you want people who don't have MS to know about your situation?
I think because we're just so conditioned, somebody asks you how you are and you say, you're fine. That's like the automatic answer. And
Right.
if you know somebody that has it and they're dealing with it, you can just offer to do a grocery pickup for them. That's so nice
Mm-hmm.
now that the things we've gone through, that's just a everyday common occurrence. You just order your groceries and pick it up. That'd be huge. Or, if they have little kids, just take their kids out for an hour so that they can just have a break. Or just the littlest things that people don't even realize, are a huge relief.
Definitely. I could see that. Yeah, just these small gestures and being able to have a break from the challenges, the additional challenges that you have, because you have to deal with regular life and the challenges of that, but to have a disease on top of that just exponentially expands that, is what I was attempting to say. Yes. I'd be curious, what about any myths people might have or misconceptions about multiple sclerosis?
I think a lot of people assume you're going to end up in a wheelchair, or some people think you die early from it, which I think the science is still debating that, but I think you can fully live a long, healthy life. And by making healthy choices, that will definitely extend your life. And a lot of people, if someone says they're tired from MS or has fatigue, typically the normal response is, well, the other person's tired too. And it's just like a different tired that people don't understand. It's like, I can't move my legs anymore right now. I am exhausted. I'm just out of energy. And it's almost like you have to meter your energy. And if the heat bothers you or the cold bothers you, you just have to recognize that and then meter yourself that way, instead of becoming exhausted and then not able to do anything else for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So just a lot of navigation.
Yeah, it sounds like, and again, I mean, coming from my perspective, it sounds like there's a lot more intentionality needed around pretty much everything you do to make sure that you're positioning yourself in a way that you're able to, I guess, have the kind of day that you want, or just be able to kind of moderate your energy in ways that you can get the right things done or whatnot. And it sounds like that kind of really important intentionality is not something that everyone is going to be familiar with or deal with or ever deal with, especially not on a regular basis. So I think that helps open up some insight into some of the pieces that are a little bit different. Are there any other, myths or misconceptions or just wrong ideas that you see people generally have?
A lot of people just, I think in general, want to fix somebody. So if you say you have something wrong, then they want to offer suggestions to help you, which I'm sure they mean well, but their aunt's brother's cousin tried something and then you should try this. And you just have to acknowledge that they mean well and just know it's not anything personal. Maybe that's the biggest thing, is just don't take anything personally ever.
And what about any environmental toxins or factors that can aggravate MS?
And I guess that's a spot that I really dug into a few years back, was just trying to figure out what causes inflammation in our body. What's, causing all these reactions and aggravations, throughout my system. And I actually just did a ton of reading and figured out there's so many chemicals in our country now that contribute to inflammation. And from your laundry products to your floor and counter cleaning products to what you put on your body, as far as shampoos or deodorant and other body things. But I started with the laundry room just because we lay on our sheets all day and the stuff sits in our skin and our clothing all day long. And just avoiding synthetics and synthetic fragrances has just been a huge, huge help.
So sort of on that same note, are there other things, because it sounds like, having those synthetic materials in the cleaners is not helpful. Are there other things that generally tend to work for people or generally tend to make things worse that they can either change in maybe their habits or their environment or anything else?
And then I think after I figured out, the whole household scenario, then I went to what I was eating and drinking and just changed that up. So I actually cut out dairy and wheat or gluten and then sugar, because those three do cause inflammation as well. And not that it's easy to do, which, that's another reason to have somebody in your corner, is when you want a giant ice cream cone, then you just know you're going to feel terrible from it. And is that really worth it? So I think those factors definitely help people feel better as well, or cutting those out, I should say.
So is inflammation kind of one of the main causes of an increase in symptoms, or is it one of many? Or I just heard you say, inflammation a couple times, and I'm wondering what the relationship is there exactly with kind of how you feel. Because I know in general, inflammation is not great, but mapped onto MS, it's probably exponentially worse.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. It is. And the inflammation, I think, causes more symptoms or aggravates symptoms that are already there, or exacerbates them even more. It's hard to know what's going on inside our system, but it'd be nice to just be able to see what's happening. But I think, by just taking the steps to cut some of these things out of your life is a great place to start, no matter where you're at.
Definitely. Was there anything else that you think is important for our viewers to know about MS?
I just think, or I see, there's just thousands of people that are diagnosed, and it's heartbreaking when they just don't have a support system or don't have anybody to talk to about it. Or, I've just noticed, in different areas or different groups that, even people's spouses leave them because they just can't deal with this. And it's such a lonely illness sometimes, and it doesn't have to be. There's people willing to help and just need to reach out and let them walk with you.
Yeah, beautiful message, because I can imagine it could be really lonely, but you're clearly the warrior to be that person for people to talk to, which is great and incredible and inspiring in itself. So that being said, is there anything you'd like to plug before we wrap up today?
If people would like to reach out, my website to schedule a call is just my name. So it's wendybjork.com. And then my website is heartsofwellness.com. And my Four Cornerstones is there to take a look at. And that's where I just actually dive in with them to go through their mindset, their relationships, what they're doing, putting on their body or eating or drinking, and then the environmental factor as well. So just to dive in there that way and help them out through there.
Yeah, beautiful, wonderful. So yeah, if anyone is dealing with MS, don't try to do it and handle it on your own. Get the support you need. Wendy is here for you. Check her out. And for those who don't have MS, at least hopefully you learn something. If you have people in your life with MS, have some more loving kindness and, do a grocery run for them if you can.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, Wendy, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and then go and subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you get notified when the next video comes out. If you check out in the description below, go to my website where you can get my free fast and easy guide to stress relief. Thanks again for checking us out, and we'll see you next time.